Hello everyone, and thank you James for taking the time to come up to the stadium this afternoon and do this. Really much appreciated, and what a beautiful day it is too. Fills you with a certain joie de vivre, wouldn't you agree? Anyway, it's scarcely believable that we're now 6.5 months into the new season since our record-breaking, history-making game at Forest Green at the beginning of August. So much, of course, has happened on the pitch. So many good things from our fantastic group of players, and a lot has been happening off the pitch and will continue to as well. And the thought did occur to me that the last of these updates was actually at the beginning of December, so a bit overdue, and apologies for that. There's quite a lot to tell, as you can see from the cacophony of noise behind me. There's ongoing works here at the stadium, and I wanted to take this opportunity to bring everyone up to speed with where we're at. So from a ground development works perspective, you will doubtless all remember that this particular phase of works is predicated by the need for us to achieve an overall capacity of a minimum of 5,000 by the end of April, of which again a minimum of 1,000 of that 5,000 needs to be seated accommodation. So what have we been doing? Well, the last time I spoke to you from this spot, I was telling you about this new grandstand that was going to be built, and behind me, ta-da, welcome to our sparkling new away grandstand with 6 rows of beautifully coloured seats, wouldn't you agree? With the barriers now just being put in behind me as we speak. 282 seats in total, and I've sat in most of them, and I can tell you that the view from there, from each and every one of them, is spectacular. So a great new addition to the ground, and of course from the perspective of capacity, it's 282 that we didn't have before. So a lot of questions have been asked about when this is going to be open. It's long awaited, as just mentioned. Well, the final touches have been put to it right now. Our friends from Stadium Solutions behind us just putting in the last seats and erecting the barriers. We have booked in a safety check load testing procedure for next Thursday, and we're hopeful that the safety advisory group from the council will be down and give it the okay for us to be able to open immediately thereafter. But of course we have 2 home games coming up, one tomorrow against Scunthorpe United. It won't be open for that game, but we're hopeful to be able to invite some of our guests from Rochdale to sit in this grandstand, all things being equal and the approval being granted next Thursday from next weekend, the Saturday the 5th. In any event, regardless of that, the grand opening and hopefully filling of it will be when we welcome Tranmere Rovers to the ground on Saturday the 19th of March. So, hey presto, our brand new, lovely grandstand. So as we know, this phase of groundworks, ground developments to get us to the capacity we need to is concentrated at this end of the ground. And with the new stand open for use from certainly no later than the 19th of March, what will happen to the Collingwood terrace behind the goal here at the Collingwood end of the ground? Well, the simple answer is that it's going to be dismantled and effectively moved back and up in line with the grandstand that we've just seen. Just finishing touches being put to it now. And what that means is that the current capacity in that area of 368 will increase to 672. But the reason why we need to do this now is obviously to ensure that all the sight lines from the away stand are fully in place. But more importantly, we need to make sure that this stand is full and complete, ready for occupation by the end of the season, by the time Bradford City come to visit us. So to that end, the dismantling process for this stand is actually scheduled to take place on the week commencing the 7th of March, immediately after the visit of Rochdale to the ground, which also means that it will be therefore out of commission from that point right up until the end of the season when Bradford City visit us, and we hope at that point we're able to accommodate 672 fans in this area of the ground, which in addition to the 282 in the grandstand will add a further 304 if my maths is correct, to the away standing accommodation capacity figure. Exciting stuff. So just to put a little bit of perspective on what I've just been talking about there with regards to the Collingwood Road Terrace, this is a part of the ground that maybe some U's fans have had little reason to visit, because this is obviously the away concourse where our away guests come to enter the ground. And as you can see behind me, the terrace being moved back and up, you can get the perspective now on where it's going to and what the height will be of that construction throughout, because the idea is, of course, that it runs then full length, with the far half being seated at 282 seats, and then the terrace at this side being 672 standing places. Then behind us on this side, you can see the gap between the end of the stand and the back wall here. It's an immense amount of space, which we'll be busy over the course of the next couple of months creating what can best be described, I guess, as a concourse. So with the facilities that you'd expect for visiting fans on arrival at any ground. So increased food and beverage outlets, toilets and other facilities, which will be behind this stand here at the Collingwood Road end of the ground. Well, we've become quite attached to our temporary stand, which was installed at the beginning of the season, as you know. Holds 132 seats for our away supporters. This stand we intend to keep for another season. May move just slightly to be able to accommodate the much awaited pavilion, community pavilion, which is scheduled to be installed behind it in the summer months. But this 132 seats here will remain as a seated capacity for away supporters. So if you add up the 132 here, the 282 in our new stand, plus the 718 odd that we've got in our main stand, you can see that we far exceed the minimum 1,000 seated requirement by the end of April to enable us to be eligible for EFL criteria, which is great news. And from an away fans perspective now in this area, we'll have 132 seats here, 282 over there, that adds up to 414. And by the time we're finished with the terrace by the end of the season, a further 672 there, which would give a capacity at this end of the ground of 1,084, which is quite a sizable increase on the current amount, which is less than half of that. So obviously that will enable us to get to the 5,000 very easily, and also enable us to ensure that we're maximising the number of customers that we're able to welcome from opposing teams. So check out the amount of space behind me that's been created by the demolition of the old terrace that used to sit here, the curved one with a few steps on it. We have affectionately called this area the TARDIS Terrace, for obvious reasons, and we are just about to start the process of building a new uncovered terraced area, which will effectively double the number of places available to stand in this area. The finalisation of it has been delayed slightly because of the availability of some of the materials required, and the idea originally was for this to be ready at the same time as the Collingwood Terrace was going to be demolished. So in other words, I say demolished, dismantled. So when the 7th of March comes round and the Collingwood Road Terrace is no longer in commission, the hope was that this area here would be open for admission of supporters. We've had a bit of a delay because of shortage of certain materials on this, but we're now back on track with this. But it does mean that this area, which will be able to hold 370 supporters, will be ready for use at the end of March. So not in time for the game against Tranmere Rovers on the 19th of March, but that will be the only affected match in this regard where we actually won't have this terrace or the terracing behind the goal available, and we'll only be able to use all seated accommodation for that particular game. Now, the beauty about this particular area is when completed, it has the flexibility, because we will have a segregation fence on to the immediate right as we're looking at it here of the main grandstand, and indeed on the other end of it here to the home grandstand on this side. So it'll become, if you like, potentially an away terrace when required, but it is designed to first and foremost be a home terrace for 370 U's fans, and we hope it will be a popular part of the ground from which to view matches. But by having those segregation fences in place, and open when required, it does enable us to have the flexibility of utilising this area for away supporters if demand and circumstances allow. So, totting up all the figures at this end of the ground now, you can do the maths. The 132 temporary stand, 282 in there, that's 414, 672 behind the goal when that's finished, and a further 370 in this area. That's well over 1,400 accommodation at this end of the ground, which is a significant increase on where we're at the moment, and I'm pleased to be able to say will enable us to easily achieve the 5,000 capacity that we require for EFL membership. Indeed, it'll be 150, even 200 above that, with some of the other tweaks and turns we're doing elsewhere in the ground as well. So a little bit of a delay in this particular area of the ground, but when it's finished, which will be scheduled for the end of March, it'll be an uncovered terrace accommodation for used fans primarily, accommodating 370 with the flexibility for use for away supporters if demand requires. Should be a great new addition to the ground. So, what of the planned remedial works to the pillar on the west side of the main grandstand? Well, this, to be honest, has been on the roster pretty much all season, and I've had lots of people asking me when this task is going to be complete. And apologies again to the 50 or 60 season ticket holders who have perforce been moved from their seats, their regular seats at this end of the grandstand, because of this this sightline impediment. Well, the truth of the matter is here that we have been looking to try and do this job on a month-by-month basis for some time, but there have been issues that have got in the way of it, not least of which has been the availability of materials, but then also some budgetary control priorities because of other pressing imperatives that are required to be done higher up the list of priorities elsewhere in the ground has meant that this particular project has remained undone. Now, we're 16 home league games of the season in. We've got another one tomorrow against Scunthorpe, and then obviously we're playing Rochdale next Saturday, so 2 home games in quick succession, which will thereafter leave just 5 home games to go. And it's likely that this particular project will now be deferred to summer works. So we have a list of summer works, and this is likely to be first amongst it. For certain, whilst we're planning our season ticket launch for the new season, we will be ensuring that every seat in this grandstand is available for sale in the new season. But where we're at right now, it looks highly likely that this particular job will be one that will be completed during the close season in the summer months, rather than hurried through in the remaining weeks of this season. So now we find ourselves at the back end of the new TARDIS Terrace, and you can see that there's loads and loads of room here. And this was an area that you may recall that we were going to be erecting a new complex teams room, gym, physio for our first team, which is still the plan, albeit it's a little bit further down the line again because of all the other pressing priorities that we've had. So in the meantime, you might have asked, what's this cabin doing in here? It's actually at the moment serving as a kind of ersatz physio unit for our first team, so a kind of physio and exercise area where the players come down, and a little bit more room for them in there than elsewhere in the stadium at the minute, and that's what that's for. Which takes us finally to this particular area here, which has been a bit of an eyesore for most of the season, but I'm happy to be able to report that you can now see this beautiful concrete slab ready for the erection of our new referees' rooms. Part of the other eligibility criteria for the EFL is that we need to put this building up by the end of April in order to ensure that our dressing room size, referees' rooms, anti-doping room, rest room, toilets, showers, etc. are all up and ready by the end of the season. So, happily, the concrete base is down, and I also referred last time to the fact that the actual building itself, the hardware, is sitting in the compound on the far side of the car park over there by the old pigeon hut. So we've contracted the supplier to come down and put the building up from the week commencing the 7th of March. So that's going to be a very busy week down here at Gander Green Lane, and that building will go up and take a few days, over a week maybe, to finalise and construct. So that will have been the last piece of the jigsaw for us to ensure that with a following wind, Stadium Gander Green Lane here is ready and willing to take on all comers in the 2022-23 season. And one thing you can be sure, of course, is that we're catching up with our superb on-pitch performance. What a great management team and set of players we've got down here, making everyone connected with Sutton United immensely proud of supporting this very special football club. We're doing our very utmost, of course, to ensure too that our off-pitch performance catches up with our on-pitch superb feats for this season. And as you can see, we're getting there with an awful lot of the groundwork and improvements at Gander Green Lane for this particular phase. Gander Green Lane will always be a very special place and a unique atmosphere down here, and that ethos, that philosophy will remain intact whatever improvements are made to the stadium. And then in the summer, when we're continuing the works and then planning beyond, that will always be at the very heart of every decision that we make here. This is a very special football club. We've got great people here working on our behalf on and off the pitch. And one thing you can be absolutely certain of, and if anyone wants to come and ask me any questions, you know where to find me on match days or at any other time during the week. Happily answer any questions people have got. So there you have it. The ever-changing face of the grand old lady that is Gander Green Lane becoming more and more beautiful by the day. So, great thanks to all of you for your magnificent support throughout this season and our superb set of players on the pitch. Spread that word. Let's get this place rocking and full week after week. Spread the word. In it together. Forever Amber.